Welcome back to Softcore History. I'm your host for the week, Dan Regester, joined as always by Rob Fox.
Should we make the joke again that we don't have a deep bench?
We don't.
Yeah.
Just the two of us again.
It's Gabby's in Europe and no one else answers our
Randy's
calls.
in Japan.
It is what it is.
Jake's still oystering.
Jake's was on an island this weekend. I don't know.
Are you sick? I feel like the older you get, the kind of like more congested you are always. I guess you have kids.
I'm not.
That makes sense.
I'm not actually sick, right? I mean, I'm not. I don't feel well, but that's just from like travel and.
You have your sweatshirt on.
Yes, my sweatshirt. If I'm wearing a sweatshirt, that means I don't feel good in some way. For me personally, it was driving 9 hours over the last 2.5 days. That really is what absolutely makes me feel like shit right now. Getting no sleep. Having to sleep in the same room with my fucking toddler, who every time I would try to sneak in and get in bed as he's in his like little crib, would wake up and be like, Dada, Dada, sleep with Dada. And I'm like, fucking fine. And he doesn't understand that you don't need to be right on top of the person you're sharing a bed with when you share a bed with them. Same way like people will post pictures of like their dog not understanding or respecting space on a bed. That's my fucking toddler.
Get a spray bottle.
I probably should have. Yeah, I mean,
That's how I taught my dog.
I spit on him a few times, but that didn't work.
It only incentivized him to come at you.
I was like, well, then he just spit back, and he thought it was a game. He just spit back in my face. I was like, all right, I can't do this.
No. I feel great, actually. Just got done deadlifting pre-show. Coming straight from the gym.
Look at you.
Feeling strong.
I'm happy for you. I have a giant cup of tequila. It's not straight tequila, but fair amount of tequila in it.
I didn't realize how unimpressive the 1,000-pound club is, which is squat, deadlift, bench, 1,000 pounds total. It's incredibly
Total?
easy. Yeah, it's very easy.
I don't know anything about it, and that doesn't sound that tough to me.
No.
Squat especially. Shouldn't squat be pretty easy to pop
Deadlift
250?
is really where I do most of my heavy lifting. So I just did
Literally.
I did 455
Okay.
today. I mean, all I have to do is like squat 315, which is easy.
I was going to say, squatting
And then you
sounds
bench
easy.
like, I don't know. I can bench 275 incline.
Is that harder?
Incline's harder, yeah.
Okay. Sure it is.
But it's incredibly easy. I'm only saying this because there's a video going around the interwebs, and this is evergreen content because people will always have stupid opinions. There's a bunch of dudes that clearly don't go to the gym that are making fun of all of these weak men that can't easy curl 110 pounds.
So these guys just get all their strength on the curl?
Bicep. So it's an easy pound, or it's an easy bar with 20 kilos on each side.
Okay.
So I think a lot of people are missing the fact that it's not 20 pounds.
20 kilos.
It's like 45 pounds on each side.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's 110 pounds,
Yeah,
and
'cause
you have
you
to
hear
curl it.
You hear about like a morbidly obese person and
Like
Europe.
99% of the population cannot curl 110 pounds.
Yeah, and who cares? What's the point?
That's way more impressive than the 1,000-pound club is my whole point.
Okay.
I can't curl 110 pounds. Like
Bitch.
without,
You bitch.
I'd have to like throw my back a little. It would be all momentum.
Bitch. I'll do it right now.
You'd be pulling the fucking sword out of the stone.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I just like walk around like 40 pounds in one arm every day. No questions asked. Like doing all kinds of fucked
That's
up
why
shit.
you want biceps so much bigger.
I am left-handed in that respect. So yeah, like my left arm has more control. So I always carry my kids around the left arm.
There's an imbalance. You have to kind of work on that.
I know. Well, I carry both of them a lot of times. I feel like
Clearly, Rory's much bigger.
he's
a fucking mammoth.
quite a bit bigger. We were at dinner with a 4-year-old.
Because you don't feed Finn sometimes.
Well, Finn gets
He's
what Rory doesn't
malnutrition.
eat.
Yeah, he gets the scraps.
Yeah, which is like a funny thing to think about. 'Cause
And I've
you're
been to
like,
your
"Oh,
house. Rory has thrown food on the ground, and I've seen Finn go over and crawl over to pick it up.
Rory only throws food. He doesn't even fucking eat anything. I don't know how he grows. I don't know what the fuck he eats. But Finn still has to compete with the dogs, and the dogs still beat Finn to this point.
He's gonna be like the kid from the Vale, that like 7, 8 years old. Mommy, I'm hungry.
Breastfeeding.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Courtney never breastfed him for 1 second. So
You're gonna start at 8,
yeah, we begin at 8. Yeah.
and I mean you're gonna keep pumping kids out. Third one's on the way. Who knows? You gonna go for like? You going for a basketball team starting lineup?
Fuck that. No. There's no way. There's no.
What's the
fucking way.
dream? I guess with the kids.
3.
Well, you got 3, but
Well, we don't
they're
have
getting
3
into
yet.
tennis,
Oh yeah.
some country club sports,
Tennis,
golf.
soccer. Tennis and soccer. Maybe a quarterback.
Try to make that U.S. national
Oh, actually,
team.
the real dream is MLB pitcher. That's the real dream. That's the one sport that I didn't play beyond 8th grade. Well, I just didn't play soccer beyond 8th grade. But that's like the one sport that I was not great at that I could teach them to be great at.
Great athletes aren't good coaches. Ever.
No, they're not. Yeah.
So you might be able to pull something out there.
And there's a decent chance Rory's left-handed. Like, throws left-handed.
So, kids, if you're listening, you're in high school still, and the coach is trying to tell you you're not good enough, throw it right back in his face. He wasn't good enough. He's a coach.
But that means he is good enough then to know that they're not good enough. What you need is like a Teddy Bridgewater. He's like coaching high school football now. If Teddy Bridgewater doesn't like your talent in high school, then you shouldn't feel bad about that because he was too good to know what real talent is.
What about like a Ryan Leaf? He was coaching high school for a bit.
Well,
then he went to prison.
Ryan Leaf was probably just telling kids that to get them depressed so he could bang their high school girlfriends.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to transition this into our topic, actually. What about like a Chase Daniel?
A Chase Daniel? Chase Daniel is going to be, the day he wants to be, he's going to be first a great QB coach and offensive coordinator, and then a great head coach. In fact, there was talk ever since he was a
No man has made more money off less talent than Chase Daniel.
Hard disagree. First off, what he did takes so much talent. The man is the best agent. He had the talent to pick the perfect agent.
He surrounds himself with a circle of much more talented individuals. I agree, yeah. You know, you are who you surround yourself with.
I mean, you probably are at least mildly a fan of Chase Daniel's best wide receiver in college. You don't like Macklin that much?
Not really, no. He was an okay Eagle.
You guys never helped him.
He definitely thrived much more after he left the Eagles.
Yeah. Bad org.
That's what people say about the Philadelphia Eagles. Awful organization. Can't handle talent. Can't draft.
Who was his quarterbacks?
Kevin Cobb.
Yeah. What the fuck? That's not great. And then you had the fucking...
He might have had the first iteration of Nick Foles, though.
So I wonder if that was his
Nick Foles was 27-2.
That was his one good Eagles year.
27 touchdowns,
Nick Foles,
2 interceptions. People kind of dump on Nick Foles for his career.
How Obviously, did you guys not do better with Macklin and Deshaun Jackson?
Chip Kelly.
Yeah.
That's why.
I think that's going to go very badly this year at his current station.
Anyway, guys, this is a history podcast. And the reason I brought up Chase Daniel is because today we're going to talk a lot about Missouri and Kansas.
I'm going to get heated and irrational for this. So
most likely.
Yeah, as a University of Missouri alum.
And I'm here to tell you that fuck Missouri.
Man, fuck you. First off, one fun thing about Kansas, because I always try to take the moral high ground on this.
Today we're talking about bleeding Kansas. Yeah. And yeah, dude, fuck Missouri.
They always try to take the moral high ground on this. But one fun fact about Kansas that you may not know in the whole bleeding Kansas situation is one of the reasons they were wanted to be free soil is they just didn't want any black people there at all, slave or free.
That's actually what the free state meant, free of blacks.
It's not inaccurate. Like, they didn't want black people there. They did not want any black people in Kansas.
It's a headache.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess.
And we'll get to it.
Okay.
The reason why. But abolitionism becomes a major political talking point in the mid-19th century. The U.S. tried to maintain a balance between power of northern and southern states to not upset the slavery apple cart. With the expansion west and the move to the Transcontinental Railroad to connect the East to California.
This is all pre-Civil War.
Mm-hmm. Territories in between were battleground areas with how they would treat the issue once they reached statehood.
Which is, by the way, how Missouri became a state in the first place. Or maybe how Maine became a state, I should say. Missouri and Maine came into the Union at the same time in 1821. Because when they were admitting states at that time, there always had to be one of each. Because they didn't want to upset the balance like in the Senate and with electoral votes and shit like that. So but I think more specifically in the Senate. And I guess the House too, but the Senate obviously doesn't matter for population, right? So like Missouri had more people in it, I imagine, in 1821 than Maine did, but balances the Senate out.
The Civil War was always going to happen.
Always.
They just pushed it down. There's like, that's a future us problem.
Well, yeah, it's a tomorrow problem.
Yeah.
But I do think there was a while like Jefferson thought this, and other early, especially Southern people of prominence thought this, kind of maybe like pre-John C. Calhoun. We're like, slavery will solve itself. We're not gonna keep doing it forever. Like they thought it would die out, and then cotton gin happens and.
Money machine go burr.
Yeah. And then, believe it or not, there's just a...
Eli Whitney, I believe, thought this invention would, from my understanding,
I think he
get rid of slavery.
Yeah,
right?
I think he thought he was going to automate slavery to death.
No.
Nope.
Nope. It's an all-time backfire, though.
Oh, my God. Can you imagine if someone, like... I don't even know how you would do it. Like, someone invented AI specifically to, like, destroy child porn because AI would, like, find child porn the best and eliminate
and then child porn is just created from the AI.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they're in this moral dilemma. It's like it's artificial, but it is still child porn.
That's the cotton gin, basically.
Really shot himself in the foot.
It's not good. It's not good. Oh, the other thing I was going to say was one thing that a lot of the Southerners didn't really take into account was that they really, really just didn't want to not be a whole ass tier above black people. Like, there was, I was watching a video on this the other day, which take that for what it's worth, the words watching a video on this. But it was from a guy who knows his history pretty well. He was talking about how the sort of Jefferson up to the 1820s generation, you know how each generation's different, right? You have one generation that is one way, and then the other generation will just reflexively be against it. So that generation was like, had slaves, but kind of felt bad about it. And then the generation after that was like, fuck you, mom and dad, slavery's fucking sweet. And this is the generation that's in charge for what we're about to talk about and shit like that. That's the generation, the Jefferson generation kind of, and a little bit right after that is the necessary evil generation. And then the generation up to the Civil War is the John C. Calhoun positive good generation. Who argued like slavery is not a necessary evil, but in fact a positive good. It's good for the black people. It's good for the slaves.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like how religion right now is kind of swinging back with the younger generation.
Exactly. Or like even allegedly, statistically, this is like the most conservative young people have been in a while. It's not.
It kind of goes hand in hand with the religion.
Yeah, it's not because they're waking up. It is never because they're waking up.
No, they're being rebels.
It is
right?
always because they're just like, look at something that they grew up with. They're like, fuck that. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm. It's just a middle finger to your parents.
Yeah. It's not some Renaissance or anything like that. It's not some great awakening. It's just a middle finger to whatever they grew up with, whatever it is.
And it always swings back and forth.
Yes, always.
So the Compromise of 1850 was a temporary Band-Aid on a festering gash. It approved California as a free state, banned the practice in D.C., and allowed the territories of Utah and New Mexico to a popular vote on the issue without federal intervention, while strengthening fugitive slave laws to keep the South happy.
Yeah, so it's basically like we got to try to keep a balance, but...
Yeah, meaning the North had to fully cooperate in handing over escaped slaves. Yeah. So
and
they get past that line, they think they're home free.
Nah.
No.
And there's good money in that. In fact, you know who... Now, he died a little bit before this, about 20 years before this, but you know who was made his living as a slave catcher for a while? Fugitive slave catcher for a while.
Wyatt Earp?
No, our very own William Travis of Travis County, Texas.
Oh, okay.
Of Alamo fame.
I was just thinking of like the most famous sheriff I could think of.
So there was a A&M and South Carolina. When A&M joined the SEC, they were sort of designated as rivals because neither of them. South Carolina's a noob to the SEC relatively, and A&M was brand new, so they were kind of designated as rivals because they were both odd men out.
Also, I'm way off. Wyatt Earp was born in 1848.
Fair enough. And Mizzou got Arkansas just because we're right next to each other. But A&M and South Carolina had nobody really. So William Travis, born in South Carolina, hero of the state of Texas. So when they started playing this fake ass civil conflict rivalry game, the trophy was called the Travis Trophy.
Mm-hmm.
And within like 3 years,
They had to rename it.
the little Wokies, probably not at A&M, probably more so at South Carolina, if I had to guess one, were like, that's offensive.
Every edition of a new state went through heavy scrutiny, and tensions only rose trying to appease both sides of the aisle. So when you appease both sides, you never appease anyone.
Yeah,
That's really kind of the lesson here. We're going to get to it pretty early.
There's good compromises and bad compromises, you know? And it's like, what do they say? Like a good
But a compromise where everyone kind of feels, slighted,
Yeah.
that's not a good compromise.
Well, no one's supposed to walk away from a compromise, like, happy, right? But there's a difference between that and, like, just...
Feeling like you got boned.
Yeah, and just, like, I don't know, just putting bad code on top of bad code, right? Like, that's all it really is.
Mm-hmm. In May 1854, the Kansas-Nebraska Act was proposed by Illinois Democrat Stephen A. Douglas. It was in direct conflict with the 1820 Missouri Compromise, which forbid the practice of slavery north of the 3630 latitude and west of the Mississippi River, other than in the state of Missouri.
And presumably...
You want to apologize for your state?
No.
Okay.
Not at all. There's any state that existed before 1865, slavery was legal in it. And I include California in that. They had other ways of doing it, but
They had different titles.
yeah. So suck my dick.
Like the 1850 Compromise, it had a popular sovereignty clause that would allow the territory to decide for themselves on the issue, but fearing it could shift the balance of power one way or the other. The previous Nebraska territory, which had been denied early entry, was split into two with the creation of Kansas.
Okay. Mistake.
So you could have a really big rivalry with Nebraska right now.
We are rivals with Nebraska.
But like a bigger rivalry.
We were...
I don't think Nebraska thinks about you.
They don't. It's the same way. It was actually very similar to the Kentucky-Florida rivalry.
Yeah.
Where Florida just ass-fucked Kentucky for literally 30 years. We beat Nebraska it took us 30 years between wins in Nebraska. I think it was the year before I got to school was our first win against Nebraska in like 30
It's Penn
years.
State, Ohio State, where Penn State hates Ohio State, and Ohio State doesn't care.
Yeah.
Like,
Ohio
you're not
State's-
Michigan.
Ohio State's got like 4 or 5 rivals above that. Honestly, they probably hate Michigan State more. Notre Dame, they're probably even bigger on.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, they definitely hate Alabama more.
Maybe Florida.
Definitely Florida. I mean,
that
even though
title
Florida's kind of lost relevance, twice in the same year in 2 different sports, it's a nightmare.
Douglas assumed Nebraska would go hard on abolition, and Kansas would be settled as a pro-slavery state by Missourians,
Yeah.
thus offsetting any problem that could arise. Regarding Nebraska, Douglas was right, and its fate as a free state was locked in. But with Kansas, the Illinois senator really overlooked the abolitionist resistance willingness to fight and turn this into one of the most violent areas in the country in the name of shifting the power to the north.
I mean, it was a literal, like...
It's a mini civil war.
It is it's a guerrilla war, like a war in the middle of the country. Like, imagine if...
And we gloss over this. Obviously, I went to school in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
In high school and even middle school and everything. We breezed through this. I think I heard the term bleeding Kansas.
You probably did.
But like a mini civil war, we didn't really get into the fucking details. That sounds awesome.
It's pretty sweet.
Feels like we should know that.
Yeah. It's not bad. It's a good time.
And there's a major player in this.
What do you mean?
A guy that we know from another event.
What, John Brown?
John Brown.
Yeah. Fuck John
We
Brown.
knew about John Brown's...
John Brown is another... Oh, my God. I already talked. I was talking
But we
about
learned, like, that's the name that is in every textbook.
Yes, because of the Harper's Ferry raid.
Mm-hmm.
But here's another fun fact for John Brown and why Kansas is these people are totally full of shit. Is I already told you they didn't want slaves in there because they didn't want black people in there at all. 1. 2, do you know who the first person John Brown and his people killed in the Harper's Ferry raid was?
Was it a slave?
It was a slave. It was a black man who would not do what they told him to do. They blew his brains out. The people trying to free slaves, as soon as a black man did not comply with their orders, they blew his fucking brains out. The most hypocritical thing on earth. Fuck you. Fuck you.
Sounds like a certain side of the aisle these days.
Like, suck my dick, John Brown, and suck my dick, Kansas. You're not on the right side of history. And you know what? I'll get into this rant now, because why not? And I'll just handle it. Because I've told this to so many bitch-ass Kansas fans before who try to use this as some sort of justification that they're the better side of the Mizzou-Kansas rivalry.
Also, first off, can you even claim John Brown? He's from Ohio.
Oh, they claim him. They wave a big picture of him at their basketball game.
He's there for like a cup of coffee.
He is a hero to them. The man that murdered a black man for not doing what he said.
I'll allow you. I'll give you the floor. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, if you didn't know that. My favorite part about Kansans trying to talk about they have the moral high ground over Missouri on this. Several things on slavery. Several things. One, Missouri had the third most battles fought in it in the entire Civil War of any state. Number 1 is Virginia by far. Number 2 is Tennessee. Number 3 is Missouri. Per capita, Missouri had more Union soldiers than any other state. If you go look at, one thing that's really cool on Wikipedia is you can see the order of battle for like any major battle of the last like 200-300 years. Anyone that like had good record keeping on their on the wars, and the U.S. Civil War was one of those. Go look up the order of battle for like Shiloh or even better yet, Vicksburg. All right, 2 of the most important battles of the Civil War. And by the way, most Missouri troops fought in the Western Theater because we were the Western Theater, right? Just Command F or Control F, whatever you do on your computer, Missouri, you will see Missouri units up and down the Union order of battle for Missouri, like Missouri units fighting, thousands and thousands of Missouri men fighting on the side of the Union. Then do that for Kansas. You might find one unit, probably none. They did not have that many people fighting. So there might have been some of them, maybe most of them even, that were morally on the right side of history, but it was like 12 fucking people. There were more Missourians, quite a bit more Missourians fighting for the Union than there ever were Kansans. And another thing, St. Louis, where I'm from, which is in Missouri, was a Union stronghold. St. Louis kept Missouri in the Union as a whole. Keeping St. Louis kept a huge Mississippi River port, and one of the most important goals in the entire Civil War was making sure the Confederacy lost control of the Mississippi so you could slice it in fucking two, which is why keeping St. Louis helped the Union win the war. And who kept St. Louis? Fucking Missourians. And then taking New Orleans in 1862 was such a big deal, and then Vicksburg in 1863, which completely shut down the Mississippi River and split the Confederacy in two. The North does not win the Civil War. Slaves are not freed without Missouri. Kansas contributed nothing except some virtue signaling. Full fucking stop. Fuck Kansas. John Brown killed a black guy because the black guy didn't do what he told him to.
Feel better about yourself?
A lot better.
Got you hyped.
You
came in today very low energy.
I know. Not my first rodeo.
Glad I picked this topic.
Well,
on this specific day. Get you fired up. So almost instantly after Douglas's act passes, settlers from both sides come in droves to establish residency and gain the right to vote.
Oh man, you think voter fraud's a thing now? Because like some ballot harvesting, blah 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 blah. People would just go on voting tourism.
Yeah, we're getting to that.
Like it's fucking bananas. I don't think any election was real before 1900.
Well, most of it too is from
I know
your side.
I know
of the border.
But that was not new, and it was not exclusive to Missouri.
The reason I got on this topic actually is because I just moved this week, and I was gonna do kind of goofy stories of moving throughout history, and then I just got somehow onto Bleeding Kansas.
Get in a rabbit hole. Well,
and I'm like, you know what? I'll cover it.
Fair enough.
We never got to it. It's a pretty big event, and like I said off camera before the show, you just did a slavery episode. We for whatever reason sync
Slaves
up.
on the mind.
with slaves on the mind.
What was my slavery? I don't even remember.
The guy that wrote that slavery
Fitzhugh.
is
Yeah.
not only good, but more people need to be slaves.
Way more people need to be slaves.
Go ahead and check that episode out if you
Including
want.
whites. Most whites.
Mm-hmm. President Franklin Pierce's administration appointed territorial officials and factions with pro-slavery views to capture early elections through fraud and intimidation practices. In November of 1854, a group of thousands of armed pro-slavery men, known as the Border Ruffians, a.k.a. the Southern Yankees, came in from Missouri to sway the vote for a Congress election of John Wilkins Whitfield. An investigation a year later found that 1,729 votes were completely fraudulent compared to the 1,114 legal votes.
Yeah. So they were more votes than there were people.
Significantly amount.
Yeah.
A significant amount of just completely dog shit votes.
Which is funny, because, again, it's like nowadays you'd be like, there were like 1,000 votes that are suspect in Atlanta out of like the millions of people that live there. But in Missouri, or the kid played in Kansas, it's just like 2,000 people show up to be like, yeah, we're from here.
Election fraud is not new.
Give us a fucking ballot.
At
bitch.
one poll, only 20 of the 604 votes were Kansas residents. Like 20 of the 604 votes were legit.
You know, considering how easy it was to move, I think you should be able to vote back then, wherever you were, and at any given moment, you're allowed to vote.
I wonder what establishing residency was back then.
Right?
Because there's a lot of kids, when I went to UCF, they weren't from Florida, but they moved there 6 months beforehand, established residency, and then got in-state tuition.
In-state tuition, yep. That was at Mizzou. It was like all the Chicago and Dallas kids would stay their first summer because you had to be there for a year and you had to make some minuscule amount of money. So they would get like a part-time job. I mean, it was like literally you probably had to make like $5,000, $10,000, and then boom, you're a Missouri resident. Or maybe you just had to be employed. Honestly, maybe it wasn't even a cap. And so yeah, they would all do that. And then that was for the in-state tuition. I doubt they gave a shit about voting. Although voting was sweet in Missouri back then, it was a swing state. Obama only won Missouri by like 3,000 votes, the whole fucking state. Now it's gone. Doesn't matter.
The
It's
North
not fun.
countered with their own militia group of Free Soilers or Free Staters, the most famous led by the previously mentioned John Brown
Famous black guy killer.
in Leavenworth.
Yep. Famous slave killer John Brown.
When he moved from Ohio. Societies like the New England Emigrant Aid Company helped fund Northerners move to Kansas. Others, like Minister Henry Ward Beecher, shipped abolitionists thousands of rifles and crates labeled Bibles.
Yeah, actually, I think I did. I don't remember what I did.
I believe they're named Beecher Bibles.
Sick. I love that. I mean, I did something on the Second Amendment a while ago. It's just like there's people used to say like when you have arguments after some horrific Uvalde or something like that. They'd be like, the Second Amendment never said you could own a cannon. And it's like, actually, none of that shit was regulated for a long time. Like, people had cannons in these, like, these were private citizens who had, like, literal artillery pieces.
I mean, go to SAE, their front yard,
KA as well.
It's KA.
Yeah.
Okay.
SAE has the lions. KA is
You're right.
Is the cannon, yeah. But I'm sure there's also just random houses that have a cannon looks dope in your yard. What yard doesn't look cooler with a cannon in it?
And when you see a cannon, you want to fire it.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of people say you see a police officer, you want to reach for their gun. You see a cannon, you want to make it go boom.
Yes. I fully agree.
Mm-hmm. Who doesn't love mortars?
That's why I have a problem at I can't pass a VFW without loading a shell into their old decommissioned artillery piece.
And setting it ablaze.
Yeah. Yeah, it never works.
It's better if that place burns down anyway.
The VFW?
Yeah. You don't need a place for alcoholic veterans.
I always wondered if Civil War veterans weren't invited to the VFW.
Like Confederate?
No, Union. It's veterans of foreign wars.
Oh, you're right. When was it established? It was probably established way after.
Let's just say some Civil War veteran just comes out of the woodwork and is like,
lives to be 120.
Yeah, it's not allowed in the VFW. Foreign wars only, buddy.
You fought here. You went home after a day of work. day of war.
Got to see your wife.
I learned this. The Jayhawk mascot for the University of Kansas is actually named after the guerrilla fighters that set up shop in Lawrence and battled the Missouri Raiders during the conflict.
Yeah, which is also weird. So here's another reason Kansas fans are absolute dipshits. So two things about that. One, again, they try to talk about how Missouri's the bad guys because some Missourians were fighting the abolitionists in Kansas, all fucking 9 of them. Yeah, sure, that's right. And those Missourians were assholes. So they they're too stupid to understand. They're like, yeah, your Tigers, you were named after Missouri fighters, which is true. So like they were fighting for slavery. Actually, the Missouri Tigers is named after the local militia in Columbia, Missouri, the Union militia
during
that
the Civil
fought off
War.
these same fucking people that the Jayhawkers were fighting. Now, what's fun about the Jayhawkers is that they were also a guerrilla group. And they, as a guerrilla fighting group, yes, they were fighting pro-slavery forces, but while doing so, often found themselves murdering women and children.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
Yeah. So the Jayhawkers murdered innocent women and children. The Missouri Tigers did not.
Are we sure?
Positive that the local Union militia that just had to grab guns and sit on a wall and fight off these assholes did not then go out and kill random women and children. The Bushwhackers, the Missouri Bushwhackers did. We're not called the Bushwhackers. The Kansas Jayhawkers did. They're called the Jayhawkers. Or they're called the Jayhawks.
Well, here's the thing, Rob. There's not going to be future pro-slavery terrorists if you get rid of them.
I just want to know what the Venn diagram and how much of a singular fucking circle it is from a dipshit Kansas fan that thinks that it's okay for Jayhawkers to kill innocent women and children who are Missourians, but PMS about an Israeli bomb landing in the wrong place. Because, man, I bet it's a fucking circle.
This is also the first I'm hearing of it, so my source is you. Just trust me, bro.
Just trust me, bro.
Okay.
No, the Jayhawkers committed war crimes.
All right,
Both sides.
I'm anti-Kansas then.
Both sides committed war crimes. But unlike Kansas, which was really only the one thing, Missouri was like there were two different sides within Missouri itself. And by the way, Missouri stayed in the Union.
Yeah, but Kansas never answers for their crimes. Look at Bill Self.
I know, they never get called out for shit.
The FBI was investigating the entire program for the Adidas shit. Nothing. I think NC State got hit with some violations.
Yeah, probably.
It was like a trickle down.
Absolute dog shit.
March 30th, 1855. Kansas holds its first territorial legislature that would decide on whether or not they would be pro-slavery state or not. 37 of the 39 states were won by Democratic pro-slave delegates. Martin F. Conway and Sam D. Houston were the only free staters elected. I'm not sure, I didn't look into this, if this is the Sam Houston.
No, it wouldn't be.
Wouldn't make sense, right?
No.
That's why you gotta put the D.
Yeah, Sam Houston was still in Texas, or maybe he was dead at that point. Because one of them, either Sam Houston or Stephen F. Austin, I can't remember which one, they were vehemently against Texas seceding in 1861. Mm-hmm. They were like, fuck that. No, we're part of the United States of America. We're not seceding. We just fucking joined it. We just joined it. And then they got booted out of there out of the governorship real fast. But I can't remember which one it is off the top of my head.
Okay. It's like me crediting Michael B. Jordan with 6 titles.
Yeah.
It's not right. So gotta put that D in the Houston. Free staters cried fraud. The territorial governor, Andrew Reeder, offered up a rather inconsequential peace offering of just running back elections of 11 of those seats. This time, the Free Staters won 8 of the 11, but when the dust settled, it was still an overwhelming 29-10 majority in the pro-slavery camp. So it was like, why the fuck did we even have new elections?
Sounds like Kansas did want slaves.
The new
kept voting for it.
Legislator then immediately invalidated those results from the special election as just a fuck you to Free Staters. So even though they had the overwhelming majority, 29-10, they then invalidated the 8 new free staters. Like, no, you can't join us.
Yeah, it's like my dick.
And they gave those seats back to the Southern sympathizers and moved the territorial capital to the Missouri border.
I mean, to this day, the only part of Kansas that is meaningful at all is attached to Missouri.
Kansas City.
KCK, Overland Park, Shawnee Mission. I mean, I guess. I mean, even fucking Lawrence is like a suburb of Kansas City, basically. It's 30 minutes west of KCK.
You're not a fan of Topeka?
No, that's a shithole.
I enjoyed my time in Manhattan.
I'm sure.
Apple.
I've heard Manhattan's kind of fun. I've heard okay things about Wichita. I have been to Topeka, though, and Topeka is dog shit.
I drove past it. It didn't look great.
No, I've stayed there. We stayed there one night when my family did on a drive to Colorado for vacation because we drove everywhere because we're fucking Midwesterners.
Free staters, in response, began assembling their own legislature in Topeka, elected...
alternate electors? Who's the real voter fraud?
Elected Charles L. Robinson as their governor and proclaimed themselves the legitimate governing body of the territory. President Pierce responded to all this by firing the original appointee, Andrew Reeder, and replacing him with a more hardline pro-slave guy, Wilson Shannon,
Got to keep the balance.
as the territorial governor.
Got to keep the balance. So Pierce is after Polk and before Buchanan.
Yep.
Now, Polk, as we've established, is one of the greatest presidents in American history.
Pierce is kind of a shitbag.
Pierce and Buchanan, dog shit.
Buchanan really is the worst president of all time. It's not even up for debate. But Pierce isn't far from it.
So what's funny is Buchanan's the goat of dog shit, but
the woat.
But yeah,
He's the woat.
He's the woat. But Pierce, the two other guys right around that time, Pierce and then right after Lincoln, Andrew Johnson, are like bottom 7.
Yeah.
Like they're both right fucking there.
It's a bad time for presidents.
With two exceptions.
But then we have like the best in Lincoln. He ascends. And you love Polk.
He only served one term because he accomplished everything he said he was going to do. I hold a special place in my heart for presidents who do certain things. One is expand the territory. And this is not in order. One is expand the territory, and the other is give up power when they don't have to.
I'm not totally sure about this, but I think Coolidge did that as well.
What?
I think he only ran one term after. Obviously, he takes over office because
Yeah.
Hardin dies. But Coolidge, I think, only runs for one term. He was still eligible for 4 more years. I think he declines it.
Yeah, because he, like Teddy Roosevelt, who did this a little before, although he kind of went back on it because he ran again in the Bull Moose Party. But Roosevelt took over very early in McKinley's term and served that whole thing after McKinley was killed and then was reelected. And he served like 7-ish years as president. But he could have run again because he's only elected once. But he was like, no, I've served, almost as long as Washington did. I don't want to do it. He gave up power. Granted, he ran again eventually, but he gave up power. And so did Polk. Polk was like, I did everything I accomplished to do. I don't need to be in this office anymore.
Yeah, Coolidge said he chose not to run in 1928, remarking that 10 years as president would be longer than any other man had done it, and it was too long.
Yep. Huge respect for anyone that does that. Giving up power, that is one of the great hallmarks of American democracy.
And then FDR just
YOLO
totally took that statement and wiped his ass with it.
It totally wiped his ass with it. Now, there's a couple others that there's at least one that I know that tried, which is Grant, who I do think is a good president, but that is kind of a flaw. He wanted to run again, and the Republicans were just kind of over his administration. So they're like, no.
Yeah.
And I think I am personally of the opinion we're going to talk about him on our Patreon this week, Woodrow Wilson. I'm of the opinion if his brain didn't break that he definitely would have tried to go for a third term.
Yeah. Wilson gets a lot of hate. Some of it is deserved. But they kind of sweep under the rug everything that gets accomplished under Wilson.
Oh, we're actually going to talk about that today, but in the reverse.
So you're gonna throw more dirt on his name?
No. It's essentially like Which this is how I open the episode.
But Wilson had so much foresight that he doesn't get credit for with Germany. And after World War I, he warned the French, like, do not sanction Germany. Do not do all these things that you're going to only create a monster.
We'll get into that. We will definitely get into that. But what I was going to say with Wilson is that, like, he's like, my dilemma was, who should you hate the most as a president? The one who's just the worst, or the one who's the most frustrating? Like, it's like, what athlete on your team do you hate the most? It's
like,
not the
there's
worst.
a lot of meat on that bone.
But it's never the worst guy, because at some point the worst guy, it's not his fault.
He's forgettable.
There. Yeah, it's not his fault for being there either.
So it's unrealized potential.
Yeah, right. It's the guy who you like plays like a Heisman contender one series and then just like shits his pants the next, and you're like, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
That's my whole Wilson episode on Patreon. Patreon.com/softcorehistory.
In November 1855, pro-slavery settler Franklin Coleman shot and killed Free State Charles W. Dow, who he had a long-running feud with. Douglas County Sheriff Samuel J. Jones ignored the obvious evidence and arrested another Free Stater for the murder.
So corrupt.
This kind of goes down as the first violent act of Bleeding Kansas.
Yeah.
But it's kind of funny that he just like
probably
like saw the man shoot him in cold blood on the streets.
That was the evidence. And by the way, that's a terrifying prospect to be arrested for that murder, because like they'll hang you 2 days later. Like there's no like, if you got arrested for murder today, you would not face sentencing for like a year and a half if you had to go to trial and everything, and you were, even if you were innocent, you know, it would take a while.
A posse of Free Staters attempted to rescue their falsely accused abolitionist. Governor Wilson Shannon called for the Kansas Militia, and we had ourselves the first armed conflict between settlers outside of Lawrence.
I'm sorry. Who were these abolitionists fighting?
A militia. The Kansas Militia.
Oh. Well,
sent by Governor Wilson Shannon.
I was led to believe that every single human being in Kansas was against slavery. And these mean old Missourians crossed the border and said, slavery now! That's what I was led to believe.
There were some Missouri guys.
I didn't know that a single person that lived inside of that dumb fucking rectangle might not have liked black people that much. God, I hate these fucking people. Keep going.
Charles L. Robinson raised his own Free Stater militia, and this was ultimately a hold me back, bro, off. So not a lot happens. Although the Free Staters did take another L, as the only casualty of the conflict is Thomas Barber.
The guy originally killed?
No, it's a different guy.
Oh, no.
He gets shot, and I guess they don't respond. They just let one of their guys get shot and die.
Better not do that again.
But yeah,
we're the brave ones.
They're just kind of like, dude, we're going to fuck you up. No, we're going to fuck you up.
It's the most tedious fucking people, man. Like, yes, obviously slavery is wrong, but like everything Kansans say about their little moral high ground bullshit, just no. No.
Meanwhile, Congress sends a special kind of a committee to conclude that the elections the year prior were totally fraudulent.
Like every single one?
Yeah. So in July 1856, committee concluded the elections had been limited. If they had been limited to actual residents of the Kansas territory, the Free Staters would have won the majority of the seats.
I don't even understand how they could check that.
Paper ballots, dude.
I guess, man. That's a lot of work.
Took a year.
Yeah, apparently.
May 21st, 1856, Border Ruffians invaded Lawrence and burned down the Free State Hotel.
Led by William Quantrill.
Destroyed 2 local pro-abolitionist newspapers and pillaged homes and stores in town. This became known as the Sacking of Lawrence. So you want to apologize for that at least?
No. Can I show you the T-shirt they were selling before the 2007 Mizzou KU rivalry game? That was like the biggest one in the rivalry.
What was it? Because Kansas was number 2 in the country at that point,
and we were number 3 or number 4. Whoever won was going to be ranked number 1 in the country based on the other.
You were under the impression, we're going to the Natty if we win this.
No, we would still. You weren't. You had still to beat OU in the Big 12 championship, but whoever won that game was going.
You were feeling good about yourself.
Was going to be in the Big 12 championship the next week, and then play. If they won that game, they would be unambiguously in the national championship. Anyway, this is the shirt that was sold.
Okay, let me look at it. I'll put it on the screen right now. Scoreboard. It's a Missouri shirt of just Lawrence burning down.
Yes. Love it. Don't care. Love it.
I think enough time passed.
Yeah, why not?
A cannon used during the Mexican-American War, called the Old Kickapoo, or Kickapoo Cannon, was stolen and used on that day by a pro-slavery group, including the Kickapoo Rangers of the Kansas Territorial Militia.
Oh, the whating who?
It was later recovered by an anti-slavery faction and returned to the city of Leavenworth. We mentioned John Brown again. In response to the sacking of Lawrence, Brown and his sons, along with some followers, snatched 5 pro-slavery men from their homes in Pottawatomie. Is that right?
Oh, man.
Pottawatomie?
Let me look at it. Can you show me the word? I don't remember how it's pronounced.
Pottawatomie.
That's probably Potawatomi, if I had to guess.
No. Pottawatomie?
Oh, sure, why not? I don't know.
Potawatomi?
Pottawatomie. Why not?
That sounds better, actually.
Potawatomi.
Yeah. So they take 5 dudes from their home and just hack them to death with broadswords.
Yeah. Now, were they alone in their homes?
No. No, they weren't. They didn't murder them in their homes, though. They ambushed them, abducted them, brought them, I think, into a group, and then just slashed them.
Yeah. Wow, that sounds like. By the way, that's a literal war crime. But I'm sure John Brown's a great guy. Keep flying him at your fucking basketball games, you dipshits.
Brown also led forces in 2 little skirmishes in the Battle of Blackjack and Battle of Osawatomie. What is with these fucking names?
Yeah, I don't know.
Between his anti-slavery group and Democrats before ultimately fleeing Kansas altogether and heading to Virginia.
By the way, the Harper's Ferry raid, do you know who was against that? Frederick Douglass. He was like, John Brown was like, we must do this and all rise up. And Frederick Douglass was like, that's fucking dumb. Don't do that. It will not work. You will lose. No one will rise up. John Brown's a fucking
It's going to
idiot.
hurt the cause, yeah.
Yeah. It did hurt the cause.
Also, in May of 1856, this is what really sold me on the topic. And has nothing really to do with Kansas.
Yeah.
Massachusetts Republican Charles Sumner went on an anti-slavery tirade on the Senate floor and compared what was happening in Kansas to the rape of a virgin.
Yeah, sure, dude. Totally.
He was nearly beaten to death 2 days later with a cane by South Carolinian Congressman Preston Brooks.
Yeah.
Brooks was then praised by Democrats for his actions.
I love that. I just bring back beatings on the floor. Like, there was just a fight, and this video went viral, like, the other day.
You want to let me get through the rest of this.
Okay.
Because we're not done yet.
Okay.
Fellow Democrats then wore pieces of the broken cane in necklaces to show solidarity with Brooks. Pro-slavery newspapers said abolitionists in Kansas and every other territory needed to be lashed into submission, and hundreds of Southerners sent Brooks new canes with inscriptions that said, "Hit him again." We think politics are bad now.
Yeah, it's never been good.
So go ahead. You can
I was
continue.
gonna say,
I just wanted to get through that. That's
one child.
The people sending in Kansas just say, "Here you go, another lash."
I'm trying to see the ages of the people he killed with the Pottawatomie massacre. They did kidnap one child, but I'm pretty sure like it was not all over the age of 18 that they killed, if I had to guess.
You weren't a man at 18 back then. You were like a man at 15.
Sure.
You had to grow up faster.
Oh, they were going to kill a 16-year-old, but the mother pleaded for his life, and they're like, all right, we won't do it.
Man, you really hate John Brown. I've never seen this kind of rage come out.
It's just, like, there's just a lot of hypocrisy around him. Like, he's not a hero. He's a domestic terrorist who killed 5 unarmed men. Wow, hooray for you. And then when, again, a fucking slave wouldn't do as the white man commanded, they killed him. What's even the point of you?
If you're not going to go with my cause, you're my enemy.
Suck my dick, dude. And it was like a little thing, too. They're like, open this door. And he was like, I don't know you. Property-wise, like, I can't let you. It was something like that. And they were just like, yeah, I don't have time.
It was like a lock. It's like, I don't have the key, man.
Yeah, like, it's just, I'd have to look closer because I haven't read it in a while. I haven't been in this argument in a while. But they did, like, it's just pure hypocrisy.
The last major violent outbreak was in 1858 when Border Ruffians killed 5 Free Staters. In total, about 56 people died during this time period known as Bleeding Kansas. Pierce was then succeeded by James Buchanan, who was very much sympathetic to the pro-slavery cause. He refused to acknowledge the Kansas Constitution written by the Free Staters in Topeka. He then personally endorsed the Constitution written by the pro-slavery group in Lecompton. A third, more radical Free State Constitution came out of Leavenworth. It would extend the right to vote to every man regardless of race. None of these went through, and ultimately the Constitution was drafted in Wyandotte. I don't know. That was still anti-slavery, and it became law of the land as Kansas was admitted in 1861 as a free state.
A useless, empty free state that did nothing to help free any slaves in any meaningful way.
So the Free Soilers, the Free Staters, ultimately went out, despite all the corruption by you Border Ruffians.
It's not my set of state. Yeah, I mean, look, obviously being an abolitionist is the, quote, right side of history, but, like, they just, it was like the whole thing was like a virtue signal. Like, it had, like, political impact in so much as that it pissed off people on both sides and maybe sped up the Civil War happening. But, like, they contributed nothing in any meaningful way to actually, like, freeing a single slave. And again, I mean, John Brown, I guess, got one slave out of chains into the ground.
Who knows if he actually let him out of the chains?
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah. Might have just executed him.
But it is just like, and like those people, like the Jayhawkers and stuff, like absolutely committed war crimes. John Brown absolutely committed war crimes. Was not.
Should we sell the Jayhawk, the Rock Chalk Jayhawk, with just a war criminal shirt?
They literally are. I don't know how to, it's not something to be valorized like at all, really. It's crazy that I don't want any people to change their name or whatever, but it is just like know your history.
It is a dope mascot though. I like the logo.
It's a stupid, dumb, fake bird.
It looks good, man. It's a classic
pilgrim
logo.
shoes. It's weird.
It looks much better than the Missouri Tiger.
I can't say.
I mean, unless you go. I mean, your guys' sailor logo, obviously, it's a classic.
Everyone likes, but there's a million sailors.
Yeah, you just throw a little sailor hat on any logo. It looks good.
I mean, I am not a huge fan of our mascot or colors just in general because like black and gold is kind of whatever, and everyone's a tiger. We were one of the first tigers.
I disagree with the colors.
You like
I like black and gold.
You have the same ones, yeah. I'm jealous of like Auburn's colors or Florida's color. I like the blue and orange.
Go to Boise then.
I love those. Those are great colors. Yeah. KU is kind of whatever to me because it's red, white, and blue, which everyone has those. Like it's a super common.
Got a little yellow.
Yeah, if a hint of yellow, it's fine. But it's just everyone has that. I kind of like I like Michigan's colors a lot. Love Michigan's colors. I think Georgia's colors suck.
Okay. I don't really dig any orange and black colors. So like an Oregon State. It just reminds me of Halloween.
The whole time.
Yeah.
That sucks. I don't like black as a color in general.
Oh, I do. I know you don't, because you're
I like to pop.
flamboyant
Yeah, I like to pop.
Easter egg type fella.
Yes. Absolutely. Actually, you know whose colors I fucking truly don't? I think Alabama has shitty colors.
No, I like it. I like just any of those classic uniforms. Very simple.
Their uniforms are great, but as a fan, to wear the colors, I don't love it.
What would be your choice then? Would it just be Auburn colors? You want to be the Auburn Tigers?
You know what? Actually, I'd go Florida. Like, they're brighter.
Oh, okay.
But I do think Tennessee's too bright.
There's a happy medium.
Yeah.
Okay. I think the answer's pretty obvious with who you're going to say, but who was today's Hitler?
Kansas.
Oh, I thought you were going to say John Brown.
Oh, John Brown, Kansas, all of it.
Okay.
Hypocrites all.
You learn anything today?
No.
I knew it.
I'm fairly well versed in this. Just
I was
based on
not.
Arguments alone that I've gotten in.
I was not.
Let alone, history, or whatever.
I learned that the
kind of from there.
Jayhawk was a militia group, a fighting group.
Yeah. Yep. Which is a good mascot. It's unique. I will say this. It is, without knowing any meaning of it, it is a good mascot. 100%. It is unique. It is a great mascot. Even though I like to make fun of it. But, yeah, the only thing that drives me crazy is they try to act like they're morally superior in some way. And it's just no, you're awful at history, which is not surprising because all you need to get into KU is a Kansas high school diploma. Believe it or not a great high school system for that state.
Oh, you're really shocking me. The Midwest doesn't have great schools.
No, we don't. No one does. I mean, Missouri's not great either.
No.
That's why most of St. Louis goes to private schools.
Either does the South.
Yeah, no. It's like California, New York, a couple other East Coast.
Obviously, the
Chicago.
worst schooling system, unfortunately, though, is our brothers in Hawaii.
You don't need to read when your country's that beautiful.
I know.
You know what I mean?
It's like you're going to go work at a resort anyway.
Yeah, just enjoy it. Enjoy life. You want to read a book?
Nah.
No math? You don't need to know math. You live on a beach.
I think South Carolina is the second worst state. They don't really have an excuse.
South Carolina is
just the bane of a lot of problems.
South Carolina really skates by on just not being Mississippi or Alabama. Because it's gorgeous.
And they have Charleston.
Yeah, they have Charleston, so gorgeous architecture, a lot of history.
Fucking Hilton Head.
They've got beaches. You take away Charleston and the beach, and South Carolina is worse than Mississippi.
Yeah. But no. Mississippi's terrible. Mississippi's god-awful.
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
It's the worst fucking state in the union.
It's a nightmare.
Easily.
Oh, by far.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare.
I'd rather live in Alaska than Mississippi.
Feel free to tweet at me at RobFox3 if you disagreed with any takes I had here today.
I'm sure there's plenty.
And I will slap you down, especially if you're a KU fan.
I will answer for none of Rob's takes. That said, go ahead and check out the Patreon, patreon.com/softcorehistory. 2 additional episodes every week. As Rob said earlier, we're talking about Woodrow Wilson, apparently.
Yep. We're evaluating a resume.
Okay. And then leave a review, 5 stars, please, and thank you, Apple. That would help tremendously. That's how you move up the charts. And Softcore History for merch. I think we're going to try to work on some stuff there, but we'll see.
We talked about it off mic ever, but I want to do a series of History Dad shirts and hats. Civil War Dad, Rome Dad, Ancient Rome Dad, World War II Dad.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for tuning in. For Rob Fox, I'm Dan Rochester, and you just got soft serve.